Alrighty, everybody. So we are going to be talking about Lopez versus Apple. So I went down the Apple Siri rabbit hole. I read a few articles. Credits will be in the description for easy reference. But it sounds like around 2019, a story came out from The Guardian by Alex Hearn regarding Apple listening in and recording private conversations. And so again, the short story is the news story was published indicating Apple Siri was recording conversations that users were not aware of. Whistleblowers spoke up about concerns. Again, this occurred around 2019, and Apple eventually issued an apology and has implemented some guidelines to stop this from occurring in the future, and we are almost at a settlement. And so the bigger summary is contractors were involved, so that elevated the concerns that contractors are constantly rotating and evolving through and out. And so that meant that the possibility of more and more people knowing about people's private information would be in the higher numbers. And then when they thought an appropriate recording occurred, the contractors were encouraged to document it as a technical issue, not really escalated as a big concern regarding privacy. And then there were no major attempts were made to prevent it and or protect users' privacy. The Apple Watch and the HomePod were considered some of the bigger culprits, and then the watch itself was probably considered the most intrusive. And I think this is probably due to the fact that there's a feature called Raise to Speak on your watch, and that is also very similar to prepping for the trigger word. So if you moved your arm up, even if you weren't really going to say, "Hey Siri," this would pop up and it would start recording. And so this occurred when people were in doctors' offices and meetings. And so you can kind of see where this could become a little bit of a challenge because people wear their watches everywhere. And so if you go to a doctor's appointment, you go to a private meeting, most people are wearing their watches and they don't realize that it could potentially help with a leak or a breach of your privacy. And the Apple Watch is probably the most popular smartwatch available. Without looking, I think one of the articles said about 30% or a third of the smartwatches sold are Apple Watches. Again, people wear it everywhere. People may not be aware of the feature Raise to Speak. They started selling the Apple Watch around 2015, I think, and they're probably around the 10th generation right now. So whistleblower, just to kind of let you know, whistleblower is someone who speaks up when they believe their company or a company, the organization, is doing something wrong. And then an example of a famous case, although Apple does not really raise to this level, but a whistleblower example is the Tuskegee syphilis study, and Peter Buxton was the one that reported it, and this became a huge issue, and I think the NAACP ended up suing and winning money for those who were affected by that horrible incident. All right, so now let's go on. So mitigations for this: if you are concerned about your privacy, you want to, if you own Internet of Things devices, you own smartwatches, you own a smart ring, you have even your phone, everything. You want to review your privacy agreements with everything that you purchase and or use. It could take you a long time to do it, but you got to be aware of what the agreements tell you, because a lot of them will ask you to opt out, which is, I guess, almost kind of the standard, but it's very rare that a company will say, we want you to opt in to collecting the data, but I believe that's what Apple did as one of their mitigations or one of their concessions for making these mistakes. You can go into your apps also and select which ones can access or be accessed by your assistant, so you have some control over permissions on your device and on the apps and the programs that you have purchased and or have on your devices. You want to know how your devices work. The example in this situation is the smartwatch. And so if the Apple Watch has a trigger where it starts to prepare so it's more efficient when you raise your arm, because it is sensing that you may be getting ready to speak to it. That is something that you want to know. You want to know how your devices work. Be aware of trigger words like "Hey Siri," "Hey Google." Maybe consider setting up your voice to do a voice match. Make sure that not just anyone or the TV program or something can trigger it. And then be aware of triggers, gestures that may be able to trigger it as well. And so there are quite a few credits, even though this seems like this is a very quick presentation. There are quite a few credits. In fact, there's so many. Let me see if I can get them so you can see them. Let's see. I have them up here somewhere. Don't laugh. I know I got them. Maybe not. Oh, here you go. All right, so there were quite a few credits. And so I'll just go through them. Lawsuits, Akin Gump, Wired, The Verge. Apple's hired contractors are listening to your recorded Siri conversations too. The Verge again. Apple agrees to pay $95 million to settle Siri privacy lawsuit. AP News. This one actually, even though it has a different title, it actually mentions this situation with Apple reaffirms privacy stance and the actual case. Lopez versus Apple. And then another article by The Verge about paying $95 million, and then the government information site on other cases that include Google and Amazon. So there's quite a few credits for this one. There's a lot to read. All of them really say the same thing, which is Apple did a no-no. They probably didn't take it seriously. People assume that Apple is the one group that has your best interest in mind for privacy, and come to find out maybe not so much. So just because they say they're your privacy advocate doesn't mean that they necessarily are. So keep that in mind when you're doing all this stuff. And let me see, what else do I need to tell you? If you think that you qualify for some of this settlement, the articles implied that maybe it will be approximately $20 per device, up to 5 devices for people who feel like they're entitled to it. So if approved, the settlement would apply to a subset of US-based people who owned or bought a Siri-enabled iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, MacBook, iMac, HomePod, iPod Touch, or Apple TV between September 17th, 2014 and December 31st, 2024. Okay, a user would also need to meet one other major criteria, which is they must swear under oath that they accidentally activated Siri during a conversation intended to be confidential or private. Individual payouts will depend on how many people claim the money. So if you apply, you could end up receiving less than $20 max cap. And so probably not a lot of money. The settlement's been almost finalized, and so good luck to everyone who feels that they should be involved in this. And hopefully Apple will do a better job, and hopefully any of the companies who make AI assistants consider privacy and ethics when they're building this stuff, and that they watch out for their customers. Thank you for joining. Have a nice day. See you later. Bye-bye.